Hi, everyone. Welcome on the LightsOnData show. Today, our guest is Bob Colley, who's the Chief Technology Advisor at ZMC LP and a board member at IT Renew. In this episode, Bob will provide insights into how his IT Renew team built a financial and customer hub in minutes for Business Central 365, Salesforce, and Azure SQL Warehouse using Lyftron's data automated data pipelines. He'll also walk us through how Instant Financial and Customer Hub really accelerated their journey to the cloud. And in addition, how this modern data architecture expanded their analytical capabilities with Tableau. But first, allow me to introduce you Bob Colley. Because Bob attended Vanderbilt University and pursued a degree in economics and is currently representing ZMC on the board of IT Renew and works with the management teams at Thrive, which is already impressive, Logitech's, formerly known as Dynasty Sports and Entertainment, and Education Networks of America. He has over 20 years of leadership, strategy, and technology implementation experience. Mr. Colley has served in a variety of roles, including Chief Technology Officer and Senior Vice President of Strategy with Education Networks of America, PSI Net, and Telalink Corporation. That's impressive.
Well, thanks very much. We kind of through the work we do at ZMC, we try to make sure that we have an active engagement in our portfolio firms, and part of that includes the services and work that I do with our portfolio firms. So ZMC is a mid-market private equity firm based in Manhattan. We're currently investing out of our third private equity fund, which is a $775 million U.S. facility. We make most of our investments at the intersections of media, technology, and communications. IT Renew is one of our portfolio companies, and in being one of our portfolio companies, they are uniquely focused on really what matters these days, which is environmental sustainability and overall governance of e-waste in many cases. So what IT Renew does is they basically take the servers and networking gear from the large hyperscalers, the Googles, Facebooks, Microsofts, and whatnot, make sure that it's securely wiped before it's transported, that is any data-bearing element, and they bring those back into their warehouses. Currently, they have 9 global warehouses where those servers and networking gear come back into their locations. They're fully inventoried and validated against the underlying assets that were expected to be received. They verify that there's no remaining data-bearing assets that have any content whatsoever in them, and then they disassemble them and confirm the proper working order of the CPU, memory, and hard drives. In many cases, some of those components actually go back to be redeployed into those hyperscalers' data centers in order to really help on their sustainability and their circular economy push. In other cases, those go to a variety of kind of second market users. They could end up in video consoles. They could end up in appliances that people use, or gaming consoles, where you think about really a kind of high power CPU from a server that was once in one of the hyperscalers servers or networking gear being placed in a more consumer device. And then lastly, and almost as importantly, IT Renew has a product called Sesame, where they are rebranding and recertifying the open compute gear that was designed to really maximize the effectiveness of those servers in very large scale data centers. And they're going to other hyperscalers as well as enterprise users in a way that is just not available in the overall marketplace. So if you think about it that way, we got over 8 million DIMMs, RAM DIMMs last year. We got about 2 million CPUs, and we got tons and tons of hard drives, be they SSDs, be they NVRAM devices, or whatnot. So we've got a huge processing activity that we need to do and validation, and it really all comes down to data and making sure that we have that data throughout there.
Yeah,
Because
so tell me a little bit more about that piece, because you definitely need to rely on data to make decisions. So
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that data environment.
Yeah, so we have a proprietary system internally called WITS that really helps us, validate what we're bringing back in, and that is an internally developed solution that is based on SQL Server. That is it is virtually what everyone in our firm uses. We also have responsibilities to make sure that that data actually, goes back to our clients who are actually furnishing us that equipment on a consignment basis to make sure that we market it well. So knowing what we have, knowing what we're going to have, and knowing what that value is and how we maximize that for ourselves and for our clients, which are the hyperscalers, really revolves around that data that is in our underlying systems. So we have layered on top of that Microsoft Business Central 365, which is Microsoft's cloud version of Navision. That is their mid-market accounting solution that is deployed in the Dynamics 365 environment. All of our sales transactions go through there, and that has tons and tons of information about all of the transactions that are actually happening, and knowing the value of a certain item, where things are moving, and everything going on at the same time. And then on top of that, our sales team uses Salesforce to make sure that we're understanding both for our Sesame product and for our underlying work that we do with the hyperscalers, what we should expect. So it's about making sure that supply and demand and pricing are kind of all in balance because our users need a reliable quantity of gear and forecasting through us.
Wow. Thank you so much for this very comprehensive description. And I think after this, it makes even more sense to call it IT Renew.
Yeah.
So that, turn on a light bulb in my head for sure. Now,
Yeah.
you definitely need to be innovative in order to be a successful investment firm, right? And you need to be able to deal with constant change and plenty of variables. And I'm, mentioning a ZMC here in particular, but how does data address and help deal with these changes, and how does it help you innovate?
So I think that given the fact that at IT Renew we're dealing constantly with different volumes of equipment coming in. Some of that is planned, some of that is unplanned, and we want to achieve the highest value of resale and reuse of those components for our underlying clients, which again are the hyperscalers.
Hmm.
Um, we need to make quick decisions about whether we take a machine apart and send one component here and another component there, what does get environmentally recycled, and what actually goes and gets rebuilt into new servers. And so when that comes in, we need good data and we need good forecasting of understanding the demand in all those different channels so that we don't waste labor when
Hmm.
if something comes in and it can be sold as is, then what we want to do is do our validation and our security work that we do as normal. But we don't want to spend a bunch of time taking it apart, or even perhaps harming that component, wasting labor costs and also hurting our product. So that data helps us inform every day as things come in where things go.
So then I would imagine that in order for this to happen, for IT Renew to be successful, for its employees to be successful, you need to enable access to information and digital adoption to your employees. Can
Mhm.
you please talk a little bit about this need?
Sure. So a couple of things that we've done. Um, So on our component selling team, they need to know not only what's in, but what's been going out. And so the
Hmm.
team spends a lot of time, in the past digging through spreadsheets, understanding what happened. But so what they really need is real-time information. And so we have a Tableau-based system as well as internal information in our WITS system that takes data from previous sales, forecasted volume coming in, current volume in our warehouses, and express customer demand, and shows them very quickly what is the highest and best use for this. And so when something comes in and when they first scan that component, it says, hey, send it down channel 1, 2, or 3.
Hmm.
which tells us what to do with that component. And that's very dynamic. It can change day to day. It can change hour to hour based on what we're expecting. And on the flip side, when we are selling our components, we want to make sure that we're getting the best price for those components for our underlying clients. And so it's important to know, how much volume we've sold in the past, how much demand is being expressed there, and what are our current transaction prices. And having that available both via Tableau and through WITS is really important. And to your point, that data comes from tons of different places, and it needs to be consolidated. It needs to be kind of through a standard ETL process to pull it out and push it where it needs to go and make it available as quickly as possible so people can make decisions in the right time.
And that definitely can be a challenge on its own. Were there any other challenges in order to enable this access to information and digital adoption?
Yeah, so this will probably sound a bit surprising, but Microsoft deployed Business Central in their Dynamics 365 environment. But it didn't come with any way to kind of feed that into a data warehouse. So Microsoft's Common Data Service is just now emerging
Hmm.
as a way to access and use that data. But for the past 4 years that we've had it deployed, it wasn't available. And so we tried to use Power Automate to move components over in the backend into a SQL data warehouse in Azure. And we had quality issues. And also, even though Power Automate can be a pretty user-friendly platform for some of the more simple things that people are doing, it didn't really have a way for a data analyst to really understand and kind of take a new pipeline of data from that information to a data warehouse to be able to use it, especially as their data needs change, and what was available in the catalog in the data warehouse or what in a certain environment may not be sufficient for the next day's needs for
Hmm.
what it's trying to do. And so having the ability to have a tool such as Lyftron, which really kind of seamlessly connects all those components together, has been really important to us. I don't want to spend a lot of time, building custom code, trying to teach someone Power Apps. What they've learned very quickly. So people who do the work, our team that does the work in Tableau, can very easily and on their own build a new data pipeline out of Business Central, out of Salesforce, or out of our WIT system into the data warehouse so that they can gather that information and really provide an immediate result in kind of process change or analysis that they wouldn't have an easy way to do otherwise.
So was that done through Lyftron Data then, the
Yeah,
data pipeline?
so we looked at a number of different things. We had Scribe in the past. I believe it's now called TIBCO integration, and we tried a number of different ways that way. What we really liked about Lyftron was the fact that we didn't have to describe the data first. What we were able to do is just say, here's a source and here's a destination, and it really has a way that it connects that, builds the tables properly, and just flows through. This really worked well with our data analysts because we didn't want them to have to, fully set up the table at the end, but instead just really say, this is what I want, copy it here, make it happen, and kind of give incremental loads.
Okay. All right. So from your experience so far, do you see a huge shift to cloud storage and computing?
I mean, certainly. I can kind of step back from an investor standpoint. You know, any compute that is in enterprise data centers is certainly going to leave there in the next 3 to 5 years.
Hmm.
Whether that goes to a private cloud environment, a public cloud environment, or a hybrid environment, that's really a business decision based on a combination of costs and business needs. Um, but the years of enterprises, other than hyperscalers or kind of second level hyperscalers, maintaining, huge data, huge compute and data presences on their own is probably not very likely in the go forward days.
Right. And again, moving to the cloud comes with its own challenges, and definitely the ETL piece is one portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of, back to Lyftron, how long did it take you to get on board with Lyftron Data?
So it actually was a very fast process, and the nice part of it is that we didn't have to involve a deeper set of our IT team to do that. We had conversation with their team. We understood what we needed to do there. We talked about the challenges of accessing data in Business Central. The Lyftron team already had an adapter that worked with the previous version of this product, which is the on-premise Navision solution, which also is called Business Central. It's just not Business Central 365. And they looked at that, and they were able to extend those abilities within about a week in their core code to have a new adapter to allow us to connect to Business Central 365 from within Lyftron. So start to finish, we were probably in less than 2 weeks. And half of that was trying to kind of figure out, what was the best connector to this environment that they hadn't ever touched before.
Well, it probably took longer to, get all the approvals to be able to have a contract with Lyftron Data than to actually set up the data pipelines.
Yeah, no, it actually took longer to try to find Lyftron, but I know that they're doing a lot better job of making themselves visible in the market.
So let's talk a little bit about that data pipeline through the Business Central 365, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll put out this slide here. Let me see if I can do it really quickly. There you go, which kind of shows the workflow of Lyftron Data there, and so that's one pipeline for Business Central 365. But I know you also have the Salesforce and Azure SQL Warehouse. Can you tell us a little bit about the difficulty level then and setting up these pipelines? Was it different for each one? Was it easy for Business Central, but more difficult for Salesforce? Or
Well, I mean, so Salesforce came natively. Given the how much Salesforce is used in environments, the Lyftron team already had good adapters for Salesforce. So that happened in, frankly, a matter of minutes once the team just basically connected directly to the Salesforce instance and got the security credentials they needed. We don't have a data architect. We don't have an ETL developer. What we have are somewhere between a data analyst and a BI analyst. And that team was able to connect directly to that and suck in the data from Salesforce and create very meaningful reports against it in our data warehouse in a day. Really, the work that came on that end was mostly to work with the underlying business user to customize those reports to actually, give them what they need with the data together. When it came to Business Central 365, as I mentioned earlier, we had to adapt an existing adapter or connector to do that, which did not take very long from the Lyftron team. And then it became immediately able to do that. But I mean, in our team doing this work is two people who are kind of the level between a BI analyst and a data analyst. And they've been able to maintain the pipelines and add new components on a constant basis without the need for that higher level management responsibility.
and who is this team? Who's doing the pipeline management?
So there's two team members that basically work with our business users to help define the data that they actually need, and they also do the work of building the ultimate BI reports or doing the transformation in the data warehouse and bringing everything together. They're the same two people who log into Lyftron and create that new pipeline that's necessary for any new data. And I work with them to make sure that if there's something that is unique that they need that isn't immediately evident, then we can do that work. But it's really two folks, and we've produced an immense amount of data that really guides how our business operates.
And these individuals, are they considered technically as part of an IT team or a data science team, or they're data engineers, or how do you classify them?
So we actually put them part of our finance team. So they're in part of financial planning and analysis, or FP&A team, and they are data focused individuals in that team. They don't do financial modeling per se, but they really work with our data and presentations and the use of that data.
Well, okay. So from what I gather, you don't need to be too technical in order to work with Lyftron Data. And I know you keep mentioning the word easy. It's been easy to do this and that. So why is that? Is it, don't you need to write code to, pull data from Business Central 365 and Salesforce? Or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I mean, I know it seems kind of surprising when you get into some of these kind of more technical environments, but
Yeah.
really we just had to define the endpoint, which was Business Central, define the endpoint, which is Salesforce, and then tell it to refresh its metadata inside of Lyftron. And that entire catalog of data became available. And at that point, moving it from there to our data warehouse was really a point and click solution. No code was written on our end.
Wow. So all of this, then with all of this, you're really accelerating your development journey multifold and saving time and cost as well.
We are, and I mean, I think it's really about making effective decisions because our business is very focused on the circular economy and being very, very focused on environmental sustainability and good governance in support of our underlying clients. And in doing so, data allows us to waste less. And allows us to make very good business decisions about how to optimize the outcome for our clients and how to minimize our waste.
Right. And I'm also thinking, from an internal resources perspective, normally you need to hire these resources that would be dedicated into building these data pipelines, maintaining them. They will be highly technical. You'd have a data engineer, you have somebody in IT or part of a data science team. That's what they kind of do every day. And even the project on setting everything up initially would take months and a lot of revisions and a lot of coding and recoding and reviewing and so forth and so on. But from my understanding with Lyftron Data, then you don't need that. You can put the tool, the ETL development capabilities in the hands of a Tableau developer, of a financial analyst, and so forth and so on.
And that's exactly what we've done.
Right. So can you share us then some insights on how Tableau has been used to perform instant analytics on Lyftron Data platform data?
So, I do know that there's a direct connector within Lyftron to Tableau. We're not currently using it in that manner. We have our Tableau reporting sitting on top of our Azure data warehouse, SQL data warehouse. And so, that connection goes directly from the SQL data warehouse. Kind of historically, that's the way we've done that. I do know that there is, good amount of capacity and capability to actually kind of get ad hoc queries within the Lyftron Data environment. We just haven't used that at this point. What we do use Tableau for is our daily sales reports, our daily volume versus expectation reports, and understanding really the cycle counts and the movement of our inventory constantly. That happens by basically pointing the Tableau environments towards our SQL data warehouse, and that data warehouse is almost entirely populated from our Lyftron feeds.
And what's the refresh rate? Is it on a daily
Different
basis?
components at different times, but some of our most critical components are on a 4-hour basis, and then nothing is really runs at more than a full day on a cycle.
Well, as Dinanath was saying, very impressive and cool, and I have to agree. Yeah. And
The nice thing is that if we were to do the work we originally tried to do in Power Apps to make this work, it was done in a way that we had to manage and understand the kind of delta or when we had new data, we had to figure out what was new data, keep track with a pointer and doing that. The Lyftron environment does that natively and allows us to do the incremental updates on a straightforward basis.
And I see there's a lot of love here in the comments about Lyftron and how Lyftron Data is doing really amazing work. And just wanted to say hello to the audience. Thanks so much for joining in on today's episode. Now, that's very, very cool and very interesting and very, I think gives a lot of hope for those that are struggling still with their ETL processes or ELTs processes. Now, I want to take a step back and ask you this about IT Renew and wonder if it had its data, on the cloud from the start. And if
So,
not,
go
then
ahead.
why did you choose to move to the cloud?
So our WITS system, which is our warehouse inventory and tracking system, is still in a private environment and is not in the cloud,
Mhm.
mostly because it is our day-to-day control. Our Business
And
Central
is that
environment,
for security privacy
it is
issues?
it is for well, it's just because it's where it is. I do expect that we will put it in the cloud eventually. We have a dearth of very high-powered servers that come in every day, and we have the ability to reuse them to support our internal operation.
Mhm.
And so that's what we've done. To be honest on that, it probably goes to the cloud in the future, and it doesn't require too much more work on there. That's only one relatively small source of data that we're actually working on here. The biggest source of data is our Business Central 365 environment. And, when we looked at a new ERP solution for our team, we didn't look anything that wasn't cloud-based. Because having an environment that doesn't require you to maintain servers, maintain software, maintain anything, and really, get a SaaS ERP app was really key. And so what we did was, looked at products that had that. We looked at NetSuite, we looked at Intact, and we looked at Business Central 365, and that was our ultimate choice. So that was born in the cloud, always been in the cloud, and we put it out there. When we looked at putting our data warehouse out there, we wanted it broadly accessible. We wanted to have the flexible ability to manage those underlying environments. And so getting it as an Azure service rather than having to deal with licensing and CPUs and memory and whatnot, allowing us to scale up and scale down that environment very flexibly. We chose the Azure environment for the flexibility. And frankly, the cost is extremely competitive in that situation.
Mhm.
So when we looked at Lyftron, since we had only one part of our environment that was actually in our local environment, we wanted to make sure that Lyftron could deliver our service in the cloud. And so they're doing the work of data, extract, transformation, and loading, and they are offering us the Lyftron service as a SaaS solution.
Thank you. And I had a comment here from Aman. Let me try and find it really quick. But he's definitely mentioning that moving to the cloud saves a lot of time and money in the long run, probably in the short run as well. But again, with
Yeah.
the movement to the cloud, challenges still occur. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenges that I think people run into in moving to the cloud is, updating their expertise to be able to effectively support it. Because you don't move things, you know, while you can move things exactly as they were to the cloud, it's oftentimes not the most effective way to do it. And so, looking at the underlying services that are available in the platform you choose, whether that's Azure, whether that is Google Compute, or whether that is AWS, or one of the multitude of kind of additional local regional cloud solutions, whether they be private cloud or public cloud. I think the challenge people run into is cost,
Mhm.
because you're changing things from from a capital expense where you buy servers and you put them in there and they operate for 3 years, to really an operational expense. And if you look at a total cost of ownership standpoint, you do get yourself in a situation where it looks expensive, but if you add really how much time you're spending in maintaining it, it's oftentimes less expensive. Our SQL data warehouse that we put all of this stuff in there cost about $175 a month with Azure. It's not a lot of money, and it makes a huge difference for a business that's doing $500 million of top line revenue.
Right.
So, sure, we could put that on premise, and we could probably add other things to it. But using a number of different SQL environments, it allows you to scale and grow and have good governance abilities without actually having to build and manage that yourselves. Or even in this situation, we didn't want to have to worry about leveraging core IT. We just wanted a platform that was immediately available to us through a click.
Right. When I want to address this question from Alexis that's asking, is Lyftron Data a data integration tool? And Javed is mentioning that it's really more than an integration. It's full service data fabric tool that will solve data pipeline, data catalog, data virtualization, data governance, data profiling, API data models, and much more. I mean, already this is a lot. And Bob, with IT Renew, do you use other capabilities of Lyftron Data? Or is it mainly right now the data transformation piece?
So principally using it for data transformation. We're aware of the other capabilities that it has, and that was part of why we chose it. But we haven't really gotten to the maturity yet to adopt those further capabilities.
Got it. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about the current setup of all these automated pipelines, how really they make a difference for IT Renew? Are there, any stories that you can share, any figures, anything?
Well, I can say that when we first did the transaction to buy IT Renew, one of the biggest challenges was just the awareness of what they have and what they need, because they didn't have at that point very mature data processes, and didn't have great data sources. The work that we've done in cooperation with the team on the ground there has really allowed us to mature it and grow the business in a way that probably wasn't possible prior to the data work that we've done. I think it really goes back to the circular environment that we talk about, and being really solid ESG citizens. So what this data has allowed us to do is to maximize the availability of the product, minimize the amount of labor that we have to put into doing that, and maximize the revenue that gets paid out to our clients.
And are there any other challenges that are still waiting to be tackled?
I think that we continue to evolve in this environment, mostly to learn about new things that we have with that data. So we have developed new channels and understanding what we can do to automate and improve our underlying physical processes and how we can feed that with data.
Right.
So I think we're in our warehouses, much of those processes are still manual. When I say manual, that's the checking out the machine, making sure it matches that, pulling hardware, adding hardware, rebuilding or repackaging, and we're looking at some more automation there, and we're informing that automation through data.
Thank you. And I know so many stories on so many companies that they're really struggling with this on a daily basis, that they need to operationalize data, and even just creating reports on a daily basis, monthly basis, whatever their frequency is, takes a lot of time. And it mainly takes time to get this data transferred and transformed and validated, and it's a continuous cycle that requires a lot of manual input. And all of this, they're really not allowing them to look into analyzing the data. So then I assume that's really what Lyftron Data allowed IT Renew to do, maybe free up some of those resources that otherwise would have been bogged down into having to spend all this time to build the data pipelines and maintaining them. And as I mentioned before, keep on reviewing and improving that code over and over again. But now you can really just focus resources into looking into this data and getting the insights and making better decisions.
Right. And by having that data simply available to the business, we can make really rapid decisions about what we need to do as a business, and make those on a well-informed basis with data. Uh, and that's what makes the business difference. All of the technology involved in delivering it kind of doesn't matter if it doesn't change business outcomes. And in our situation, we feel like it has.
Right. And as this LinkedIn user who unfortunately can't see their name, it's a privacy setting on their end, but these data analytics trends can help organizations and society deal with disruptive change, radical uncertainty, and the opportunities they bring. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Bob, I'm curious about, the journey then with Lyftron Data, and, who was involved into looking for it, finding it, and really just adopting it. Were it mainly these two individuals in finance that were handling?
Really, it was, from the Lyftron side specifically, we were challenged with meeting the business needs of getting this data in a way that we could present it with information that didn't just come from one system, but came from multiple systems and had history to it, and was presented in a way that made a difference to the business. So we were presented with that challenge. We really didn't find a path using our current tools to meet that. We had Scribe, and there was probably a way to get there, but it would involve much more of a data architect or an ETL architect to really do what we needed to do there, and continue to scour the market. We first built some processes in Power Automate to do that, and then we found that they were quite cumbersome, difficult to maintain, and really we didn't have a lot of awareness of how these ETLs were going in that environment, and that we've completely shut down those processes at this point. So we continue to search for kind of a better and better solution. Lyftron, when we heard the pitch from the team, sounded like exactly what we needed, but we were a little skeptical because we had looked at a number of different solutions that were in the market. And so, we talked to the team more. They set up a demo environment. We were able to take one of our tables from Business Central that had, almost 1 million rows in it, and transform it over to our data warehouse in 20 minutes. And we actually thought that the process didn't work because it completed in that time. And so we looked and we looked. We thought things weren't working properly, and it actually did it extremely efficiently and extremely effectively. After doing that and then telling it to do incremental updates on there by just clicking and doing this, the team was sold. And so we worked with them beyond that to kind of do that work. But really, our challenge was finding Lyftron in the space. And once we've now found it, it's really an integral part of what we're doing.
We had a demo with Lyftron a few weeks ago, and I was impressed really on the usability of it and how easy it is. How you're dragging and dropping things, you can really pick it up easily. Yeah. And can you tell us, a little bit about the training aspect and how easy was it for its users to get used to it and start using it?
So obviously, the big lift is the first time you set things up. We had some good support from the Lyftron team to kind of get things set up initially. Frankly, the hardest part, as I mentioned earlier, was really trying to adapt the adapter that was used in the past to really work with Business Central 365. Once we did that, the team, saw the full catalog of data that they could move over, and just started moving it forward. We were encouraged to, work with the Lyftron team initially to get the first couple set up, but then beyond that, our data analysts really ran with it from there. So, again, in any new products, it's kind of learning the lingo and how things work in there. The Lyftron team was extremely available in email and in voice with our team. and that was fantastic to really get them familiar with it. But now, I mean, frankly, we don't have to interact with the Lyftron team very often. And most of the interactions we've had to do were when there have been revision changes in Business Central, or in less so in Salesforce, more in Business Central, to really make sure we do metadata updates on a regular basis.
And I know one of the cool features that I found in Lyftron Data is the fact that if something breaks, you have a notification, so you can see, oh, this thing changed at the source. You need to go and
Yeah,
look
no, I
at
mean,
it.
like, for example, when there's a new rev of Business Central, they do a ton of renaming of objects and fields and whatnot, and we've until we realized that we just really needed to do a metadata update on the feed into Lyftron, we thought that we'd run into a big hiccup. But just doing that metadata update and making sure that the new columns fold in well was really all that was required.
Absolutely. Want to take a couple of comments here. Javed is mentioning, wow, over 1 million rows in 20 minutes from Business Central API. This is amazing engineering, and kudos to the engineering team. And we have Brian Woods from Lyftron Data here saying that we are reducing engineer and employee fatigue while saving on costs. Nobody has done that before. Kudos, and kudos to all of you. And I like this engineering fatigue. It's not a term that I've heard of before, but it's something that I've seen a lot of times. Bob, from your experience, do you kind of see this role of the data engineer changing because of tools such as Lyftron Data, that I feel it's kind of putting these capabilities in the hands of non-technical individuals?
So I think that in technology, everything's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that there is a need for more of a consulting level architect for businesses that are of our size, rather than necessarily having to have that fully on staff, because of the capabilities that are inherent in some of these new transformation platforms. Um, I think the data architects, or the data analysts, feel more empowered by having access directly to the underlying sources and to build these pipelines. I think the changes that need to happen is really listening and understanding from the community of business users and data analysts of what they need to be successful, and not be limited by what an architect or an ETL engineer is willing to link over. So when you have these new tools that have much more capabilities, you want to do this in a way that allows them to be successful, by giving them access to do things, particularly when you're talking about read-only access to certain data. For someone who has that responsibility that's broader, the risks are relatively low. And allowing them to have that broader access is something that has not been kind of normally permitted by the architects and the engineers. But when you have tools like Lyftron, you should focus on enabling that, because it has a better business outcome.
Right. Wow, brilliant. So, Bob, what's next for IT Renew?
Well, I mean, continue to grow. I think that with the access to data we have, we're always constantly trying to evolve exactly what it is and how we use that data. What is next for IT Renew is to continue to grow our Sesame project, and continue to grow our automation in our facilities, both of which are extremely informed by data. And so really it's building on what we have to run our business more effectively and more efficiently.
And maybe get Wits on the cloud as well?
Yeah, I think we'll get there. Yeah, I think we'll get there. It's not necessarily the number one priority, but it is probably a movement what we do. Yes.
And what about ZMC?
So, I mean, in ZMC, we continue to look for investments that are, really allowing us to, make a impact in our environment, and in companies and in business, as it really plays into media, communications, and technology. we find that in almost all of our portfolio companies, really enabling the access to data in the business, not just financial data, but really operational data, allows people to just make better decisions and look at how to optimize their business and how to deliver a better outcome.
Impressive. And I think this is really what any company should strive for. And hopefully there will be more, data enablement, data-driven organizations out there that take the steps that you did.
Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk on this, and I'm sure that hopefully that my comments have been helpful to others out there. And we do love the product, and we expect to deploy this in other businesses over time, and continue to build on what we've got now.
Thank you. That's lovely to hear, and I encourage everyone to go check out Lyftron.com and look more into Lyftron Data. Get a demo and see how it could work for your needs, for your organization. Well, I do encourage everybody to follow Bob on LinkedIn and engage with him if you will. And again, you have an impressive experience and resume and a lot to offer. So thank you so much, Bob, for being on the show and on this episode and talking about the challenges that you've undertaken. And hope to speak to you sometime again.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend ahead. Cheers.